Well, hello, patrons, and welcome to episode 2 of the Two Jacks. One Jack being my good self, Jack the Insider, and and my cousin, Jack. G'day, Jack.
Good morning.
We
Good
call him Hong
evening.
Kong Jack because that's where he lives, and we've come together again today to discuss some political matters going on around the world. and Jack, I just wanted to kick it off today. Donald Trump's never far away from the news because, let's face it, he's a very newsworthy fellow, and a lot of media organisations made a lot of money out of reporting whatever he does. But this is stuff going back to the Jan 6 insurrection, where a number of texts have been released from that were received by Michael Miller, Donald Trump's chief of staff, including one from Donald Trump Jr., urging Miller to go and have a word with Donny Sr. and tell him to get on video, get on social media, and somehow or other tell these clowns who had by then stormed the Capitol building to pull back and get away, which kind of very amusing because Donny Jr.'s been saying the old man did the right thing ever since, not obviously expecting those text messages to come out. So all this stuff's going to play as the congressional hearing goes into what happened and why at January 6th, but we're not so much talking about that. We want to talk about today about why Trump succeeded and how he succeeded. And look, my abiding view is that he's probably not all that bright, but somehow he managed to become president of the United States, Jack, so it's not a bad feat.
I'm not sure how bright he is, but I think he's got good political instincts, which carries you a fair way.
Well, he's a good attack politician. He's got that down pat to the point where I think many of us thought in 2016, in the presidential election there, that his attack instincts were just way over the top, that he'd break so many rules. He was bagging the parents of dead servicemen, and any sort of traditional politician, if we want to call them that, would regard that as just a no-go area.
His attack stuff was excellent. I think it was pretty much all on two Republican debates where he took out Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz, who were the three most likely candidates at the start of the process. What did he call? He called Jeb low energy Jeb. He called little Marco Rubio, and called Ted Ted Cruz. And there was enough truth in all of those things to just wipe them out of the contest with half a dozen remarks.
It probably bears remembering that when Donald Trump decided to have a lash late in 2015, no one gave him any chance. No one gave him any chance of proceeding much beyond the first month or two of the primaries.
There's a wonderful little bit of video of I can't remember which TV show it was on, but it was a panel show, and the dreadful Ann Coulter was on there, and someone asked her who she thought was the most likely Republican candidate to succeed and become the nominee. And she said, well, of the current candidates, Donald Trump. And of course, everyone's head spun round and in circles, and they were all rolling around the floor laughing. But perhaps she could see something that most of us couldn't see at the time.
Well, maybe. I mean, what do they call her? The terrifying stick insect. Maybe she did. I don't know that her political instincts are all that flash.
No.
But what certainly Trump encountered when he entered into the primaries was a pretty desultory list of politicians. It must be said. So that's the first thing that I would say, that not just in that primary, but then once he'd won the primaries, he came up against Hillary Clinton. The woman had almost been promised the presidency without actually asking American voters whether that promise was going to be upheld or not. So I would say my argument is that he wasn't a great politician, but he succeeded in a time that suited him.
Well, you can always be lucky in your opponents. Let's face it, George Bush got who did he get? Al Gore and John Kerry. Now there's a fair bit of luck in that. Picking up those two as your opponent, because they're both pretty hopeless, really.
Yeah, did he win? Did he win? Did he win in 2000? Yeah. Well, the Supreme Court said so. So I guess we have to go with that.
Oh, well, the numbers in the frame, so it doesn't really matter.
The hanging chads. The hanging chads.
The hanging chads.
That gave him the presidency. But yeah, look, Trump certainly was benefited from a very desultory group of Republicans angling for the presidency, and then once he beat his way through that mob, as you say, as a very good attack politician, then he came up against Hillary Clinton, who thought the presidency was her right.
Yeah, and what's I think Barack Obama said she was the most qualified person ever to be president. I almost fell off my bar stool when I heard that one. The only election that I can recall her winning is for the Senate from New York, and she got the nominee because she was Mrs. Bill Clinton. And once you're the Democratic nominee and for the Senate in New York, you win.
Yeah, well, when she decided to have a crack too in 2015, one of her staffers who wrote about this afterwards, they all got together and they tried to work out a political slogan with Hillary's name on it, and they were wondering what they'd call that, and he, as a bit of a wag, suggested the best one was "It's her turn." So this was this sort of sense that the chalice had been passed to her through Barack Obama and through the Democrat hands.
One of my American pals added to that. He said she really ran in 2008 on "It's her turn."
Yeah.
So the 2016 slogan should have been, "Now this time it really, really, really is her turn."
Is it? And look, it's been promised. Look, that's probably true. But the difference between 2008 and 2016 was that America had gone through the GFC and it had been crippling. There'd been a significant recession. There were up to 9 million homeowners who lost their homes. I mean, we're not just talking about homelessness there, but people who've lost significant assets. Unemployment was in double-digit figures. And while the economy had started to turn by the time that Barack Obama left office, there was clearly a seething anger in the United States, certainly viewable through the rearview mirror, about America's political institutions in particular. I don't know that it was necessarily party-based, but those times, basically, or those conditions, and that lack of faith, that loss of confidence in America's political institutions, sort of once again suited Donald Trump's candidacy, because here was a sort of apolitical politician coming into the fray against an opponent who was, lived and bred politics.
Well, she was a cornerstone of the Washington establishment, and he benefited from being not part of the Washington establishment because people had lost faith in it.
So when we move into Trump's presidency, here he was, all conquering. I was fortunate enough as a pundit to have at least suggested that he was a distinct possibility to win when everyone really had written him off by the time of Election Day 2016. And then he became.
I think you and I were the only two people on your blog comments and your blogs in those days who thought he was a chance.
All I can say, in all honesty, is that I could see a pathway, and it involved him winning Florida firstly, and then taking down the blue wall in Michigan and Wisconsin in particular. And so I did nominate the pathway that pretty much stuck with him. I think it also involved a victory in North Carolina, but it can also be said that this was down to Hillary's profligacy, because I think she went to Wisconsin once And Michigan, maybe not at all. I'm not quite sure, but she certainly didn't put the time in those critical stages.
Yeah, there's a story going. A story. I think it was Michigan once or twice, and Wisconsin not at all. There's a story going around
That's
that
right.
Bill who was a great politician, Bill Clinton, and a pretty good president. Bill had words with her because she'd been invited to speak at Notre Dame.